Welcome. Today we're going to talk about deals, collections, and fast-moving inventory, and how you can use content individualization to really improve, the experience your customers has with this type of business. But first, a little bit about Jetlore. Jetlore was founded 5 years ago by a couple of Stanford PhDs, Eldar Sadikoff and Montse Medina. The company has started to grow quite rapidly, and just recently, Gartner named Jetlore a cool vendor for 2016. So a little bit about the work that Jetlore has done in this category of retailers. We've worked with some of the leaders, some of the pioneers, and a lot of innovative companies in this arena. And as a result, our technology is highly tuned, and we've learned a lot. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about what we've learned. So the agenda, we're going to look at the unique requirements of the businesses in this arena because these types of businesses are different. We're going to discuss some concepts that solve these problems, and then we're going to look at some examples and some case studies. So at the end of the day, what does an improved state look like? Well, there's steadily improving engagement over time, and measured as opens and click-to-open rate, and eventually revenue and things like that. And customers are receiving a fresh and relevant content and a steady stream. So their emails are not repetitive. They're seeing new relevant content each time. You can see a sales lift of from 10 to 80%. That's what we've seen, and it depends on the vertical. Some verticals, like travel, it's a little harder to move the needle, but in some other verticals, like marketplaces or in some single category retailers, there's been some really dramatic increases in sales. So taking a look at this, what are the unique requirements that we see, kind of in this business, in kind of inspired collections and deals and fast-moving inventory. The first kind of characteristic is that you're dealing with short-lived, rapidly introduced inventory and often limited items. Second thing is that because of the limited items, you have to avoid promoting out-of-stock items, and that can be a little tricky. Third thing is you have to manage how you offer collections and events and not just individual items. And so that's a complicating layer. Fourth thing is that product momentum is really a key indicator of success of a collection or of an item. And then so how do you inject that to kind of rank the items that you're going to show an individual and then blend that with their individual interests so they're not just seeing top sellers. And the fifth thing is that promotional email is really a primary tool for communicating these offers. And we're going to dive a little more deeply into how to make that work. So let's take a look at rapidly changing inventory. New items are introduced all the time, and new collections formed out of items are being introduced all the time. And so the idea here is that you have to have immediate access to what's important for people, and kind of traditional technologies. And I know probably a lot of people have tried these, but traditional technologies and recommender systems just don't get it done. There's a big time lag, and there's no time for that in this model. New items and new collections must be immediately available for ranking. Okay, next kind of issue: avoiding promoting out-of-stock items. A lot of items in this business model have limited quantities. That's part of the appeal. That's part of what drives consumers' interest. So, and quite often there's a limited time when something is available as well. Those are kind of two of the key attributes in this type of business model. And additionally, kind of a person's size or fit or something that's unique to that individual might also be out of stock. So you have to deal with this. You have to, when you're choosing, and we call that ranking, you're choosing which items to promote and insert into an individual's kind of email when they open it, or their app when they open it, has to consider the amount of inventory that's available, its pace of depletion, and in some cases, kind of the location. Is it available in a certain region or out of a certain warehouse? All of those factors need to be considered when you're saying this is what goes into this individual's email. And because you are calculating, you have to calculate at the time of email open or the time of app view. Items that are projected to be out of stock get excluded at that moment. So that's kind of a crucial concept as well. All right, so next, let's take a look at collections and events. This is a really popular type of content in this arena. They're groupings of items, and items can get regrouped and kind of reused, and that these collections represent the sale itself. Merchandisers are assembling these collections on a regular basis, and some companies have large teams of merchandisers who are doing this. So, from a solution standpoint, you have to be able to incorporate not only items, but also these collections. And you have to understand what a collection is about by looking at what's in it and how it relates to the interests of every individual. And again, these have to be available. The understanding of what a collection is about, just like what an item is about, has to be immediately understood by the system that's going to rank it and insert it as soon as that item is available. You can't take time to develop sort of this collaborative method of understanding it. Okay, the next concept is product momentum. So product momentum is actually a key indicator of overall customer interests. And by tracking kind of aggregate views and sales and some other metrics, you can really get a sense for what the hot products are. And it can be seasonal, they can be new collections, it can be items that are trending maybe because of something in pop culture. There's lots of reasons that things can get hot. And as a result, many deal sites are top heavy versus tail heavy. What that means is that there's a small slice of the overall inventory that's really driving a lot of sales. And so this product momentum is a key indicator in terms of in individuals' interests. So in order to do this, a solution has to be able to track momentum and incorporate it into how content gets chosen, gets ranked for each individual experience when they open that email or when they view an app. Yet, momentum needs to be balanced with the personal interest of the individual who's opening that email. Otherwise, they're just going to see top sellers, and that's not a great overall strategy. So you have to be able to blend these different factors together, these multiple factors together, in order to rank what content is going to be most effective. And we call this a learning to rank solution. And it's super powerful in that it allows the incorporation of momentum as well as personal interests, and actually other factors in that ranking. Okay, so the next point, and we've sort of talked about this a little bit, is that email is a critical channel, and there can be regular, daily, weekly cadences, where emails are delivered, and that's where the new content, the new deals, the new collections are available for customers to see. And these emails, because it's the primary communication method, they have to have rich content and rich data about the offerings, and that can be things like how much time is remaining, what's the quantity that's left, what's the pricing. Sometimes pricing can be dynamic. What do discounts from pricing look like? Are flights included, say if it's travel? There's many different items here, and so a solution has to be able to deal with this. So not only do you have to rank the content and insert it for each individual at email open time, you also have to have the content tiles, which might be an image of a destination or an image of a product or something that represents a collection, some inspiring image that represents a collection. These tiles need to be able to contain current information, and this is a really important point in that you can't, there's enough time to be able to generate these images sort of on the fly when someone opens an email. It just doesn't work that way because the time that it takes will create a bad user experience. So we'll get back to that in a minute. But so any solution has to address these issues. Okay, so now what are the 3 key steps to address these requirements? Well, the first is that you have to rank content for each user experience along the lines of what we talked about. And these experiences can be in email, on the web, or in a mobile app, incorporating the unique factors of the individual, global performance of products, and then you have to be able to deliver these individualized ranked content into each experience, and that is poses its own technical challenge. And then you need to track the user response so that you can understand what someone has seen, what they've ignored, what they've kind of passed on, and then you can kind of adapt future experiences based on that. So let's dive into how you actually rank content. And at Jetlore, we call our ranking technology JetRanker. And like we said, it's that learning to rank technology which can blend different items. So you take a look at, JetRanker takes a look at catalog items, and this is refreshed frequently, and in some cases we have customers refreshing this as often as 15 minutes, so that's a key input. And then you have to understand what a user is about, what their profile is. So what have they purchased? What have they ignored? Where have they engaged, throughout history? And that helps train sort of the machine learning model that kind of sits behind the AI that drives this. And then, kind of injecting in that learning to rank model the overall performance of particular products that might be influencing, kind of what a user sees. So this is that combination we were talking about of what are the items about, what is the user interested in, and what are the trending items that would be important to be inserted in here. And so when you have that learning to rank model, you can consider all that once. You can score the items for every individual when their experience occurs, when they open an email or view a web page, and then the individual experiences, in other words, what products they see, what collections they see, that gets constructed from these ranked items at the moment of their experience. So that's what we call JetRanker, and our experience is that these technologies are what is required in order to kind of make it happen the right way, and we've experienced that across many industries and many customers. So now, when you actually are trying to deliver, you see, we just talked about how you rank the content and you choose the content to get inserted. Now you actually have to deliver that, and the delivery of individualized content ranked at the time of the experience is difficult. And the reason it's difficult is because email does not allow JavaScript. It has to do with security and some other issues, but that's the way it is. And so what that means is that content management, in other words, the insertion of this content we're talking about, can really only happen with images. So you have to have images that are on standby to be able to insert them. And what this means is that you really only can choose from the individualization, or you might want to call it personalization, that is available to you is limited by the images that you have kind of available and on standby. Because remember, you can't generate them in real time. There won't be, it doesn't happen fast enough, and the user will have a bad experience. So if you only have 10 items and 10 collections on standby, that's what you get to choose from. But with Jetlore, Jetlore renders your full catalog, including categories and editorial content and other sorts of images that you have. And as a result of pre-rendering your entire catalog, that means you can choose from, Jetlore can choose from and rank anything from the entire catalog, so it gets the most relevant, the freshest experience that a customer responds to. So that's really kind of a core part of doing this well, and that's actually really critical in the mobile environment as well. So let's dive into what that looks like. So when you're pre-rendering a catalog item, you can start with an image. And so you have an image like this, which, this can be inserted into an email, but it's really not that useful until you actually wrap it in, kind of other information. And we call that a tile. So that's the transformation, the rendering of an image into a tile. It can be sort of the size of the discount, some descriptive elements, a call to action, and then what happens is that, as the product feed gets updated, sometimes the tile needs to get updated to reflect new things, right? So it might not be kind of described as a discount. There might be kind of a different description and pricing, or you can have a different kind of colors, and all this can be done via HTML, and the tiles can get rendered, and there's a very dynamic way of doing this within the Jetlore solution. So this is the process by which the tiles, the images are turned into useful tiles that can then be rendered and on standby for insertion if they're chosen. So, the Jetlore technology to do this we call Van Gogh. And the idea is that your entire catalog needs to be available, so you pre-render the entire catalog. Because remember, there's no time for rendering, at open time or at experience time. So Van Gogh, pre-renders the products, all your categories, and your different sections of your catalog. It also does collections and events. It turns all of this into kind of a giant kind of on standby set of images that can then be inserted. So when you put all this together to deliver these individualized experiences that work so well in these businesses, what you have is you always start with the layout generator, which is a Jetlore tool. You lay out what kind of experience you want, and it's sort of a wireframe. And then that email is essentially sent with an empty wireframe in it. When the email is opened, the user ID is passed to Jetlore, passed to the ranking tool, JetRanker. So JetRanker selects the content to insert, right? And it has the full catalog to choose from because the full catalog's been pre-rendered, right? And so, Van Gogh has the catalog on standby, and at that point, in less than 200 milliseconds, Jetlore selects all of the content, ranks it, and then delivers it into that experience. And each individual is going to get a different experience based on their profile. And as a result, they engage more, and it's fresher and it's reflective of what they're interested in. So the third piece of what's essential is tracking what's going on. You have to understand how each individual has responded, and you also have to track the overall product performance throughout your ecosystem. So all content that is displayed needs to be tracked for every individual, in emails, on site, in apps, and each individual profile must be updated in real time. And that way, kind of any experiences can be adapted. So if someone clicks on a product, they view it, or if they purchase something, their next engagement, which could be seconds later or maybe a couple days later, needs to reflect that new behavior. And then, of course, all engagement across all channels needs to be tracked and aggregated, and that's how you get that momentum data that we were talking about. So a key point is that all content displayed to a user in emails and other channels needs to be tracked so that their future experiences can be adapted. And I want to reiterate this, and that this is actually a key aspect of updating their profiles and then being able to rank kind of new content based on the updated profile. So all of these pieces work together, and Jetlore really has this finely tuned. So that's what a solution could look like. Now let's take a look at how this works kind of out in the real world, out in the let's look at an example of a general marketplace. So eBay uses this for their weekly deals, and they've seen dramatic increases in their key metrics. They've seen increasing engagement over time. This fresh, relevant content actually increases engagement, click-through rate, things like that. And there's lots of different ways that these tiles can be represented. This is an example of how eBay has done it recently, the results have been fantastic. I mean, increased engagement, increased revenue, kind of 68% across the board, and in the purple note there, unsubscribes actually declined. Which is a great indicator of how people are responding favorably, to this type of fresh and relevant content. So looking at a category-specific retailer, in this case wine, we're going to look at Evino, which is a kind of a wine deals site in Brazil. So they experienced substantial revenue lift, increased engagement, kind of a fabulous increases across the board. And one of the things I really like about this example is that it is, as you can see in the two slides, there's really no difference except one is hand curated on the left, and the one on the right is Jetlore automated kind of ranking and insertion of content. So really these changes, these performance benefits are driven by the individualization of what each person is experiencing. So that's a great example. So we're now going to look at the travel, kind of flash travel, and kind of inspired collections category. And so Secret Escapes which is a company based in the UK and does travel collections throughout Europe. They had initial gains in engagement, which eventually led to revenue gains. And so now this is interesting, right? In that, people don't necessarily, turn on a dime and just buy a trip, right? So, the initial engagement, it made it clear that, people were more interested in kind of what they were seeing. And then what happened is over time, that led to increases in revenue gains. And in this example, Jetlore is individualizing both items and categories and collections. Over time, you'll see here in a second that the better content, the improved content, has actually led to higher open rates. So not just better engagement once they open it, but because people are now experiencing better content, more appropriate, relevant content, they're actually opening the emails more. So, another point here, which is really critical, is that Jetlore's Van Gogh technology actually compresses those images and delivers them in a super high quality. And there's a lot that goes on there. We talked about a little bit of it. But what that means is that more content is shown above the Gmail clip. This is a really critical point because more deals are being shown, more collections are being shown before Gmail clips it off, and that's a huge win. And there's some real serious heavy lifting going on in the technology standpoint that makes that happen. So, with Secret Escapes, the revenue has shown a really healthy increase. The opens have increased, and so it's been a great story, and it's continuing to unfold. So, the last thing on Secret Escapes I want to talk a little bit about are the open rates. And email open rates are up in response to the content. You can see that orange line sort of separating over time from the control groups. And it continues to improve. And this to us is just really exciting because it just shows over time how people who are exposed to this type of content are more engaged with the business, with Secret Escapes business. Okay, so that's kind of the story today. A couple of quick facts about Jetlore. It's easy to deploy, and there's really fast time to results. It can take anywhere from a month to kind of a few extra weeks, depending on kind of how the engagement goes. You have almost immediate engagement and sales lifts. And we really recommend starting with email. It's a huge impact, and it lays the groundwork for on-site and app. And there's a number of reasons for that we're not going to go into today. So that is the Jetlore story. Feel free to reach out to us. I'm Dan at jetlore.com, and you can reach Chris at chris.mccarthy@jetlore.com. Thanks for your time today.